Happy birthday, Harry. Prince Harry turns 40 today. So what kind of a decade has it been for him? 10 years ago, Harry was still a bachelor, enjoying his life on the London nightclub scene, fresh out of the army. On his 30th birthday, William threw a party for him at their father's house to celebrate the occasion. He seemed like a very happy man. He was loved by the British public. He was the sweetheart of the monarchy. Everybody adored him. He was that popular that even dressing up as a Nazi was forgiven. But in those 10 years, life has changed significantly for Harry. Enter Meghan Markle. Harry met Meghan when he was 32 and she was 35. Now, the story goes that they were on a blind date. Apparently, they were set up by a mutual friend who wishes to remain anonymous. Yeah, so would I. Don't blame them. But if reports are to be believed, according to numerous sources, the couple, Harry and Meghan, were a nightmare behind the scenes. Things turned sour, you know the rest. A search for privacy on Oprah with an accusation of racism that was later denied. Netflix, Spotify, Spare, and the paperback is out soon with all the mean stuff still in it. And faux royal tours, much of which made money on the back of berating the royal family or using his status as a prince. During that time, Prince Philip died. Then the Queen, 2 years later. She never got to hear the denial of the racism accusation. Her final years must have been miserable with all the negativity that overshadowed the family. We had the coronation of Charles and now cancer diagnoses. The British public in the main turned on the couple. Harry has also and is still embroiled in a legal battle over his taxpayer-funded security when he travels to the UK, which he deems as too dangerous and also the reason he won't bring his wife and children too, although he's travelled to Nigeria and Colombia, arguably two of the most dangerous countries in the world, and managed to sneak into the UK undetected to attend a funeral. His children still have yet to meet all their grandparents or spend time and meet their nieces and nephews. No surprises that after all of that, there's little contact with William and Catherine, and other members of the royal family are now very weary of the pair. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that Meghan can be blamed for Harry's fall from grace. I hate it when people do that. Blame the woman. Harry's a grown man and responsible for his own behaviour. But I'm merely pointing out that things took a real slide shortly after she arrived on the scene. Last year, on his 39th birthday, Harry was ignored by the royal household. But this year, in an unexpected public message, the royal family's social media account said, wishing the Duke of Sussex a very happy 40th birthday today. Well, Harry is apparently spending today, his birthday, with his family, then going off into the mountains to reflect. Look, I sincerely hope he does reflect on all of this, and I hope that when he returns a wiser man and lets go of his inner angry child. Many happy returns, Harry. Happy birthday.
Behind the headlines, behind the royal drama and the glitz of celebrity, lies a deeper struggle. Prince Harry, the boy who walked behind his mother's coffin, the man who defied the crown, is still fighting the same battle he's carried for decades. A battle not with the world, but with himself. Harry's pain began long before the cameras followed him. Losing Princess Diana at just 12 years old shaped a man whose every choice still echoes that loss. His anger toward the press, his mistrust of the monarchy, even his self-exile all trace back to the grief of a boy who was never allowed to heal. In his adult years, that inner child became his loudest voice. Every outburst, every revelation, every tell-all moment, feels less like revenge and more like rebellion. But rebellion without reflection only deepens the wound. And Harry's latest public appearances reveal that the anger hasn't disappeared, it's simply evolved. And then came Meghan Markle, a woman who offered freedom, yet reignited the fire. Together, they left the institution Harry blamed for his pain. But freedom can't silence grief, and distance doesn't erase anger. The question now isn't what he's running from, but what he refuses to confront. As commentator Nana Akua suggests, Harry must stop fighting ghosts. The time has come to silence the angry child within, not by denial, but by healing. To rebuild trust, reclaim peace, and rediscover the man beneath the monarchy's shadow. Because in the end, it isn't the titles, the fame, or the family feuds that define him. It's the journey toward forgiveness of the world, of his past, and of himself. Until he finds that peace, the angry child will never let go.
Before we get stuck into the debate, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, as the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, is reportedly looking to send migrants to Albania, I'm asking, are Labour the party of hypocrisy? And I'll also be asking, as elderly people are increasingly giving up and getting a GP appointment as they struggle to beat the 8 a.m. scramble, is Britain failing our pensioners? That is coming up in the next hour. As ever, send me your thoughts, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. Well, I'm joined now by the editor-at-large of the Mail on Sunday, Charlotte Griffiths. Charlotte, you wrote a great piece in the Mail. Talk me through the 40 things that happened with regard to Prince Harry.
Well, I wrote a list of 40 people Harry has to make up with on his 40th birthday if he's to build bridges with the UK. And I think that there's a little bit of desire in him to build bridges in the UK and not necessarily come back here to work, but to feel that when he's here, he can connect with some of those 40 people. I mean, honestly, it got to the point at one stage where there are only 6 people really he was speaking to in the UK. And I think he's recognising that that era has to change. He can't just never come here, and he can't come here and be ignored by his family and friends or feel that he has to avoid them. The situation's untenable. So I just think now he's starting to build bridges. And that's actually what I'm hearing, is that he is starting to build bridges. And he's going on a big birthday holiday with some of his lad friends, I think some of which are from the UK. And I think we're seeing the beginning of the end of this unbelievable acrimony between him and his old life.
Well, you'd hope so, wouldn't you? But then, Charlotte, he's got his book coming out, the paperback version of Spare. That would surely be one of the things that maybe he could get rid of some of the mean stuff, like the bald patch on about his brother, and, you know, perhaps we don't want to hear about the frostbitten, the other bits. Do you know what I mean? Or Camilla is dangerous and stuff like that. If you really want to build bridges, whilst words are nice, actions would be better.
I think the royal family would love it if he just cancelled the paperback edition, but I just don't think that's possible. I think he's actually contractually obligated to bring it out. But it's only a tiny concession. But the publishers were very much expecting him to write another chapter, as often people do when they bring out a paperback version, an update. So since he wrote Spare, you know, you would expect him to write another 20 things that have gone wrong that he hates about his old life. But he didn't. He decided not to do an updated chapter or an intro or anything like that for the paperback edition. And this has been seen as a real concession and a real sort of admission that carrying on like that isn't helpful for him or for the royal family.
Well, there was news also of Meghan Markle. Apparently she regrets the way they left the UK. That was in Grazia. Do you believe there's any truth to that? Do you think that's all part of the rebuilding of the relationship?
I think there is. I think how could anyone, he'd had to have a heart of stone not to regret how it went down. I mean, I'm not saying they're accepting any blame for how it went down, but it was a disaster, their leaving. You know, their final event together as members of the royal family was unbelievably awkward to watch because William and Catherine just completely ignored them at a church service. And, you know, it was a very painful final day. She cried on that final day of being a working member of the royal family. So I imagine it's probably true there is some regret. And I actually think that Meghan will never really come here again. I just don't think that will happen. But I think Harry will. I think he'll spend a little bit more time here. I don't think he'll move from California or anything like that. But I think he regrets it, and I think he wants to repair a bit of the damage if he can.
Well, you know, Charlotte, a great pleasure as ever to talk to you. I'll believe it when I see it. You know, and also I think Meghan should perhaps go and maybe see her dad. That would be good, and that would probably work miracles for her PR. Charlotte Griffiths, it's really good to talk to you. She is the editor-at-large on the Mail on Sunday. You need to check out her piece that she wrote in it today. So is it time to forgive and forget? Well, joining me now is former BBC royal correspondent Michael Cole. Michael, lovely to see you.
Good afternoon, Nana. The big surprise of today is that the Prince and Princess of Wales added their birthday good wishes to those of Buckingham Palace. Now, there's been none of that for at least 2 years. So what should we read into that? Well, I would say it is definitely not an olive branch. There is no contemplation of any rapprochement between the brothers. The brothers are still at war. I think it's a case really of noblesse oblige, doing the right thing in just acknowledging his important 40th birthday. But I think the froidure, the coldness that exists, which didn't when we see that lovely picture of them all together, will continue. at the moment. It is said, Nana, that the King this afternoon will, at some stage, talk via video link, rather like we are at the moment, to his son in California, 8 hours behind us. So it's just after 7 o'clock in the morning there. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. But however much the King may wish for a reconciliation, I think there would be no chance of that with his brother as things are at the moment.
Because I can imagine that William won't want any sort of reconciliation. I mean, look, if Prince Harry wants to get involved and be part of it, and the King has extended the olive branch, and Harry would like William to potentially, reunite and to be friends, you'd think he would perhaps amend the paperback of his spare memoir that's coming out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, well, he didn't add anything to it, and he didn't an afterword or a new chapter. Maybe that was also a gesture that he didn't want to cause more hurt, because you can't exaggerate the amount of hurt that was caused, not just because of his revelations and criticisms of his brother, but of course of the Princess of Wales. And I think that's the thing that most bitterly upset his brother William. And I think it's going to be a very long time before there's a possibility of a reconciliation between them and a renewal of the friendship, the brotherhood that was once so real and so important in their lives. A very, very great pity. Of course, 40th birthday, an important time. 40 used to be said as the beginning of your life again. And by this time, a man should know where he's going and know what he's doing. One has to wonder whether Prince Harry really does know. There are other reports that, he's missing this country. I don't think he wants to come back here, of course, permanently. His family, as he said, are most important to him. That's quite understandable, and one can commend that. But it's interesting, in that 84-word message which he gave on just before his 40th birthday, there's no mention of Meghan at all. And people who are looking into these things and read the runes are wondering if that was in any way significant.
Does he not get some money as well, because he's turned 40?
Yes, that's right. Quite a nice birthday present. Allegedly £7 or £8 million, allegedly left to him by the late Queen Mother, who also looked after all her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. But of course, I say allegedly because royal wills are sealed. We'll never know who left what to whom. So it's a matter of speculation. But I don't think he's short of a bob or two. The only thing is that his lifestyle in California is extremely expensive, round-the-clock security and so on, and also keeping up with their celebrated friends who live around them. So I'm sure it'll come in very handy, but whether it's the solution to all the problems. Meanwhile, the Archwell Foundation, which is the one they used for all their good works, which they're very happy about, has rather grandly rebranded itself as the Office of Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Well, now we know.
Yeah, we know indeed. And speaking of Meghan, she apparently specifically said that she feels remorse over the royal racist controversy. That was reported in Grazia magazine, which came through supposed friends of Meghan Markle. Is there? Do we think that might be part of it? They're moving towards the royal family to perhaps try and, make amends in some way?
Well, of course, there's always hope. One hates to see family disputes, whether they're in the royal family or in your family or anywhere around the corner's family. But I think the chances of that are almost negligible. They really are, because so much hurt has been caused, and they've made their views clear. I mean, it was quite clear when they left the royal family in 2020, scooting first to Canada and then on to California, which may have been her original destination anyway. She quit the royal family. She didn't want it, quite clearly she didn't want it. And he is there. I'm sure there are things about this country and his friends over here. He must miss them. Of course he must.
Of course he must, yeah.
I think, I think
you'd think so, Michael. But the way he's behaving, actions speak louder than words. Michael Cole, thank you very much.